From the Newschannel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Welcome to the big show on this Monday. Nick Barris here. I hope you had a very pleasant weekend. I hope everything went okay with you last night with some of that severe weather. I don't know about you, but my bedroom was like a strobe light going off. And we had thunder and lightning, just boom, 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 some incredible shots of lightning bolts. Fortunately, no reports as far as I know of any fires or injuries from lightning, but there have been some structures damaged from heavy winds. And we should be out of it for today, but Nikki D and Leland were talking about more of it coming on Wednesday. We'll always track it. But I hope you're safe and sound. I'm glad you're joining us this morning. We're going to be talking today about measles. And it's something that I kind of requested we do another program with one of my favorite guests who can answer some questions about it, because I've heard that I might be in a window where, because of my age and when I was born, maybe I need to get another measles vaccine from years ago. We'll also talk about what we know about measles and the resurgence, and that there's been at least one case diagnosed so far in Middle Tennessee. To talk more about that is Dr. Calvin Smith from over at Meharry Medical College, and you know him from this show for years.
My guy.
Yeah, he's the best. It's really good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you as well, man.
Thanks for coming on. And we've talked about various illnesses and the importance of vaccines, and you know, we can touch a bit on that, but I thought today let's just touch on measles a bit, if you would, just for folks who maybe don't know, and because we pretty much had it eradicated until it's made this resurgence, and we'll talk about why. What is measles? How does it attack you, and what are the dangers?
So measles is a virus, and it's airborne. It's super contagious. It's probably the most contagious of the viruses. We talked a lot about the contagious level of COVID.
Yeah, right.
Measles is many folds more contagious than COVID.
Do you get it from like someone sneezing, or do you get it from someone breathing on you? Can it be on a table? If you touched it here, I touch it, and somehow touch my face, I can
Measles
get it?
likes to stay around for 2 hours. So if you're in one spot, that, like the spot you occupy, will have measles just floating around for about 2 hours.
And it's a virus. We're showing you some images of what the virus looks like and what the rash. Is that what happens? You get a rash?
So the first signs are you get a rash in your face, and it goes top down. So it spreads from your face all the way down to the rest of your body.
And okay, so I remember when I was a kid, I was thinking, well, there's measles and chicken pox. They itch or whatever, but measles is significantly more serious than chicken pox.
Absolutely. So measles, and the way you can really differentiate between measles and chicken pox real quick is you will get some spots on the inside of your mouth, these whitish spots, and we call them Koplik spots. Okay. That's only with the measles. You don't get spots in the inside of your mouth with chicken pox.
Do they hurt? Is it sore? Is it?
Yeah. And so, you know, the measles is much more serious than chicken pox in terms of the outcomes that occur with people, both during the time where they have the measles and then their risk for developing a life-threatening illness after the measles that is completely random.
All right. Let's touch on the two of those. Let's go with the first part. While you have it, who is it? If you're very healthy and you get exposed to it, what are the symptoms besides the rash we talked about, and how does it get worse? Because like chicken pox, you get the rash, it itches, it goes away. Measles, it's not just the rash.
So it's not just the rash. The measles likes to go to the brain. And, you know, the brain is very sensitive, very, you know. So the first things that happen are you get a cough, fever, runny nose, the typical things that feel like a cold. You get the rash. Rash just starts from the top, from the face, has those spots in the mouth, and then goes down. But some people develop seizures. Some people develop deafness. The measles it really likes to attack the nerves. And so for the first part, deafness and seizures are the big things that we are concerned about. And it usually affects children, which is why we hit children very early on with 2 doses of the vaccine.
What's the earliest age you get the vaccine?
So we get the vaccine at age 1 and 5.
1 and 5. Okay, so when these, again, you said it's a virus, so it's nothing you can take antibiotics for to kill. Once you have it, like most viruses, like a flu, if you get the flu, we've all probably had that at one time or another, all you can do is treat the symptoms and write it out. So how serious? So it can kill a child. What if you or I were to get it?
So if you or I were to get it, it would be pretty bad. Most adults who get the measles tend to do relatively okay. The big thing is just treating the symptoms. And the bigger concern is the spread. You know, because if it's affecting adults, then that means it's spreading like wildfire. Usually the threshold for outbreaks is if the population has a vaccination percentage below 80. When the vaccination percentage gets below 80 in a community, then you start to see some outbreaks of the measles. We know this pretty reliably and predictably. And so, you know, for you or I, older individuals, any type of virus that they're not used to is going to be.
I was going to say, yeah.
You don't want it.
So for seniors,
for seniors, you absolutely
immunocompromised.
Correct. If you're immunocompromised,
like
you don't want you run the risk of the severe complications on that end. Most things, you know, very young, very old, are the rules for those that get severely sick. Now, you know, we talked about that window, and I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit more later, but I'll tell you that as we know more about treating people with vaccines, we know the schedules and the doses that they should get. And so the really important news, and I hope we can repeat this a lot, is that if you were born before 1957, you really should probably seek to get a booster, a new measles, mumps, and rubella, because they come together.
They do all come together?
They come together. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So measles, mumps, and German measles, rubella.
Have we seen that? Okay, God, there's so much I want to cover. This is great. Have we seen an increase at the same time in mumps or rubella at this point, or no, just measles?
Not that's been reported, and I tell you, that's something I probably should have looked into and didn't, but I haven't had any big reports, and then my pediatric colleagues haven't talked a lot about mumps and rubella. Now, I'll tell you, the bigger issue between those three is that the measles is just so contagious. The measles is the most contagious thing that we know of.
Really?
Yeah. Outside of, I mean, we eradicated smallpox.
Yeah.
So smallpox, thank goodness. Unless, you know, somebody breaks into a lab. I don't like to get into conspiracy.
But it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. It's gone. Measles is very fringe. A lot of countries that didn't necessarily have the same kind of schedules of vaccinations, you would see measles in. And that's usually how, when we get outbreaks, they come from somewhere else, and then, you know, they sneak in, and then they get into a community that's been kind of lax on vaccinations for whatever reasons. You know, and we can talk about that too, because I think there's a lot of misinformation about the measles vaccine that has taken on traction, that has been completely, you know, it's always when there's a retraction in the news, the retraction is never quite as loud as the initial story.
Right.
And the story about measles and autism took on a life of its own and was completely debunked. Completely debunked. We can't call the guy even that did the research or a doctor anymore, because they stripped him of all of his licensure in England. He was an English doctor. They stripped him of everything because he lied. And so, but the lie has taken on a life of its own. And,
I guarantee you, there's people out there right now sitting here shaking their heads, going, "That vaccine's going to kill." And we're going to touch on that in a moment. We'll get into it. But the other part of it, by the way, you did say that you'll have those symptoms and you deal with that.
Right.
After it goes away, you said that it makes you susceptible, perhaps, what, 2-3 years down the road to something out of the blue? 7 to 10
years later, which, you know, for most people, 7 to 10 years from now, you're not even worried about all the illnesses you had when you were a kid, right? But 7 to 10 years later, the way it usually presents is changes in the behavior of a kid. So a kid's been a great performer at school, all of a sudden they're not themselves. They start to have personality changes, and they start to have other neurologic things like seizures. And unfortunately, with this is called subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. Nobody likes to say all of those, so we just say SSPE.
Okay.
So with SSPE, 7 to 10 years later, about 1 in 6,000 people, which is not, I mean, like if you think about the odds for the recent lottery, right? That's 1 in millions, right? 1 in 6,000 is not, that's like your odds to get to win one of the sneakers on the Nike sneakers app.
Yeah, right.
Like that's not insignificant.
Right.
So 1 in 6,000 people who survive the measles are at risk of developing this completely randomly, Nick. It's like Russian roulette, completely random. And so that's the big danger in terms of, like, you know, a lot of childhood illnesses we kind of poo-poo and say, okay, kids are resilient, they'll survive these things, right? And most of the time they do. But there's not too many diseases that can bounce back. Like, you know, it basically goes dormant for 7 to 10 years and then comes back with a vengeance and finishes the job.
And when it does come back at that point, is that
100% fatal?
Fatal. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you may, when you recover from it, 1 in 6,000, which you're right, is not insignificant when you talk about the entire population of the United States. Yeah. You have a ticking time bomb potentially in your bodies, which is why you never want it to enter your body.
Correct. That's the crux of it. you know. And so, you know, a lot of times we're in the science community, we get kind of passionate about things, and sometimes, you know, we have discussions with people, and we want to hear both sides of stories and be able to be equitable. But there are certain things, and the measles is one of them, that we kind of have to draw a strict, hard line in the sand against, because there's just no room for, you know, in my eyes, any kid who doesn't have a choice in the matter, you know what I mean, dies of something that we can 1,000% prevent.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tragedy to me.
I couldn't agree with you more, and we'll talk more about the vaccines and where the outbreaks have been, but also, let's just get back, because I know it might have caught the attention of some of our viewers who are in this age group. You said 1957. 1957. Now, I was born in 63, and my understanding was that there might have been a window. Now, you said in 57 that original measles vaccine, that's when they first came out, maybe wasn't as strong as the later ones that could leave you susceptible now. So for someone like me at 63, is it possible the vaccine that I got also was a little weaker?
It's definitely possible. It's possible for the general population as you get older, you know, and especially when there are outbreaks like this. A good thing to do, your doctor should have the ability to test what we call titers. And what titers look at are, you know, when we give a vaccine, it's like an education for the body as to what the measles looks like. And it mimics the measles, so if the measles ever decides to come back and visit, it gets kicked out immediately. It's on the, like, you know, when you go to a bar and you behave badly, your face is up there, the bouncer kicks you out, right? Yeah. So measles gets kicked out immediately if you have the vaccine. But some people have a little bit of a waning immunity either because of immunocompromise, like if they are being treated for, like our friend that calls in pretty often, who's being treated for chronic illness.
Right.
Sometimes your immune system just can't handle things or doesn't have that memory that it should have for the disease. Okay, so it's called IgG.
So but they can check, is a titer a blood test?
So a titer is a blood test, and they can check the levels of measles, mumps, and rubella.
And they'll tell you whether or not your immune system is strong enough and whether based on that titer you need a vaccine or not.
Yep.
Now, okay, so you can do that, or if you want to play it safe, can you go get a vaccine?
You can, but here's the issue with that.
Yeah.
We're running very low on the vaccine.
Gotcha.
So, you know,
I want to make sure someone who needs it gets it. If my titer is fine, I'd rather not take that vaccine, though it wouldn't hurt me because I want it for someone who really needs it.
Correct, absolutely.
Now I understand. Listen, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll take some more calls, and we'll talk more about, you know, the outbreaks where they're out there, and just about this type of vaccine and how, unfortunately, there are some out there that doubt it when this sounds to me like one of the very most effective vaccines out there, period. It protects you.
Yeah.
Don't be dumb. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.